This is CryptoKernels. I'm your host, Asa Kane. This episode is an update to our last video, which premiered just last night, about the epic collapse of crypto trading platform FTX and its disgraced founder and CEO, Sam Bankman-Fried. Since last night, he has waived his rights of extradition and is scheduled to be returning here to the United States today, Wednesday, December the 21st. We're going to go over that, and we're also going to get a chance to hear from the man himself. Now, before we do so, if you have not already, make sure that you hit the like button. That's the thumbs icon that you see directly underneath the video playing. And also, if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button. That is our icon that you see me scrolling over under the lower right corner of your screen. It guarantees that you will not miss out on any upcoming episodes of CryptoKernels. Now, this first article I'm getting ready to share with you is from NBCnews.com. And let me just pull this up here. As it states, FTX co-founder Sam Bankman-Fried agrees to extradition in crypto fraud case. Bankman-Fried was arrested in the Bahamas last week, a month after crypto giant FTX collapsed. He has been charged with fraud and other crimes. And this is Bankman-Fried that we're looking at here. Now, this article by Phil Hassell was published just yesterday. Indicted FTX co-founder Sam Bankman-Fried agreed Tuesday to be extradited from the Bahamas to the U.S., a Bahamian court official said. The paperwork has been filed with the court, and Bankman-Fried will fly to the U.S. on Wednesday, said Don Clare, the acting commissioner of corrections for the Bahamas Department of Correctional Services. Now, Bankman-Fried, 30, is accused of misappropriating billions of dollars deposited in FTX, a huge cryptocurrency exchange, in November. He was arrested in the Bahamas on December the 12th, and a U.S. federal indictment charging him with fraud, money laundering, and campaign finance offenses was unsealed the very next day. He is also accused of making tens of millions of dollars in illegal campaign contributions to both Democratic and Republican candidates and campaign committees, prosecutors say. The alleged fraud against customers began in 2019, the Justice Department has said. Gretchen Lowe, the acting director of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission's Enforcement Division, has paid customer losses at more than $8 billion. At one time, FTX was reportedly valued at $32 billion and seen as the face of the industry. The MIT-educated Bankman-Fried had been hailed as a kind of crypto genius. Bankman-Fried's lawyers had previously said they would fight the extradition. Once he is back in the U.S., Bankman-Fried can request that he be released on bail. Last week, a Bahamian judge denied his request for bail. Now, if he is convicted, he could spend the rest of his life in prison, not jail. They should correct that, because there are two completely different things. Now, this video I'm going to share with you, fair use, is from Wall Street Journal, and it talks about why FTX chose the Bahamas for its headquarters.
That person in shorts is, of course, FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried, otherwise known as SBF. He's seen here with Bahamian Prime Minister Philip Davis, breaking ground at the site set for FTX's global headquarters.
The arrival and presence of FTX underscores the readiness of the Bahamas to be a home for global leaders in the crypto space.
But now, that land sits empty. The celebrated project, abandoned. So what made the Bahamas so appealing to FTX in the first place? And
what made the Bahamas so appealing in the first place? That's a good question. Let's find out.
What will happen to the nation's crypto hub status now that its biggest player has collapsed?
The relationship between FTX and the Bahamas has, it's been interesting to watch.
WSJ's Angel Ao Young went to Nassau to cover the fall of FTX.
Obviously, the Bahamian government wanted companies like FTX to come to the Bahamas.
And so it went about courting these companies. It was the first to issue its national currency in digital form.
Sand dollar, the digital Bahamian dollar.
It hosted a crypto conference presented by FTX.
Well,
I'll make one clarification. Sand dollar is not the same as the sand token, the sandbox token. They're completely different.
But most importantly, it enacted a comprehensive legal framework for digital assets like cryptocurrency.
The Bahamas is a couple steps ahead than the US of trying to create a regulatory environment for the industry. And that really boils down to the DARE Act that was passed in the end of 2020.
The Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act, or DARE, is intended to give firms like FTX clear rules to adhere to.
Before a company, especially that's going to be a digital exchange, puts its headquarters in a country, it wants to have certainty about how that country is classifying all these different products.
That's attorney Bruce DeGaris, who's worked on Caribbean financial services matters and international white-collar crime. The DARE framework he's talking about doesn't yet exist in the US, but regulation is something SBF has called for.
The fact that FTX wanted to make their headquarters in the Bahamas, it gave legitimacy to the DARE Act, and the DARE Act...
It gave legitimacy to the DARE Act.
Gave legitimacy to FTX.
However,
So, and they gave legitimacy to FTX. So
having regulations and enforcing them are two different things.
In the beginning.
The Financial Action Task Force, a global financial watchdog, has previously put the Bahamas on its so-called gray list for increased monitoring. The country was only delisted 2 years ago.
The Bahamas regulatory regime is not as harsh. And so most likely FTX was hoping, or maybe even expecting, that the Bahamas would not harshly implement its DARE Act.
Both FTX and the Securities Commission of the Bahamas did not respond to requests for comment. There's also how the country deals with taxes. Last month, the European Union added the Bahamas to its tax haven blacklist, which identifies jurisdictions that don't yet comply with all international tax standards. The country doesn't charge personal, capital gains, estate gift, or inheritance taxes.
The company charges no personal, capital gains, estate, gift, or inheritance taxes. This is crucial information being brought to you.
Also doesn't have corporate tax, unless that revenue is derived from within the Bahamas.
The U.S. is known for having high personal income taxes, no matter where you live. I mean, you can move to some states and you might have a lower income tax rate, but nothing beats the Bahamas. So I can see why the Bahamas is a particularly attractive option to somebody like SBF, who has publicly stated that he wants to make as much personal money as possible to give back to various causes.
Another thing the Bahamas has going for it, it's really close to the U.S., just about an hour flight to Miami.
It's very helpful if you're a company like FTX and you want to attract U.S. business and you want to do business in the U.S., but yet you don't want to be subject to all the regulation and the tax regime.
Fly about 2 hours further north, and there's D.C. SBF has become something of a regular on Capitol Hill over the last year, even testifying before the Senate on crypto regulation.
The industry has...
Okay. Now that is that right there. Now something else I want to pull up. This article is from The Guardian, and it states that Sam Bankman-Fried's $40 million Bahamas penthouse was reportedly put up for sale. Entrepreneur at center of FTX scandal put luxury residence up for sale the same day crypto exchange filed for bankruptcy. Again, entrepreneur at center of FTX scandal put luxury residence up for sale the same day crypto exchange filed for bankruptcy. This article was printed last month, November the 14th. Sam Bankman-Fried, the crypto trader entrepreneur at the center of the scandal, reportedly put his $40 million Bahamas penthouse up for sale on Friday, the same day the cryptocurrency exchange filed for bankruptcy. His penthouse, labeled the Orchard, located in Albany, an exclusive private community in Nassau, was listed by real estate agent Seaside Bahamas at $39.5 million. He is believed to have lost close to $16 billion overnight 8 days ago and is now facing investigation by U.S. authorities. FTX was frozen by Bahamian regulators on Friday. Reports suggesting at least $1 billion in investor assets are missing. That's minimum. A real estate broker for the 12,000 square foot 5-bedroom residence said on Monday the penthouse was put up for sale in the last week but declined to name the owner. The news outlet Semaphore, which counts Bankman-Fried as an investor, said current and former FTX employees confirmed ownership. Again, they said current and former FTX employees confirmed ownership. Plural. Call to Seaside Bahamas went unanswered on Monday. The property appears to have been sold to Bankman-Fried by another property company, Graham Properties, in March this year. A spokesman for Graham said they were not authorized to discuss the sale. According to the listing, the Orchid was designed by the high-end New York firm Morris Ajimi Architects, and it overlooks the Albany Marina. The marina residences of Albany are considered the ultimate in luxury waterfront living in the Caribbean, of which the penthouse in Orchid is the cornerstone, the listing says. And then it talks about amenities and so forth. Now, it also listed as being sold furnished with its own water purification and standby generator, and comes fully fenced and walled with 24-hour security. Bankman-Fried and senior FTX executives worked in the penthouse. The luxe environment appears to undercut Bankman-Fried's public image of an unkept crypto nerd who slept on a beanbag under his desk at the office. That image, hedge fund managers and crypto investors have told The Guardian, was largely a feint that the media and political figures lapped up. We have this fascination of the entrepreneur who sleeps under his desk, the whiz kid Mark Zuckerberg phenomenon. Josh Peck, a crypto fund manager, told The Guardian last week. It's really a survivorship bias, a judgment error when a successful subgroup is mistaken as an entire group, and there are a lot of guys who sleep on beanbags who don't make billions of dollars. According to news reports, Bankman-Fried has been looking to liquidate different holdings in recent days. The Financial Times reported that he was shopping his $472 million stake in the publicly traded brokerage Robinhood for a 20% discount. He was trying to sell it for, what's 20% of 47 million? 472 million. That's 92 million off. All right. This, I also want to share with you, this is Bankman-Fried being interviewed last month, fair use.
But just make this very straight. Was there commingling of funds? That's what it appears like. It appears like there's been a genuine commingling of the funds that are of FTX customers that were not supposed to be commingled with your separate firm.
I didn't knowingly commingle funds. And again, one piece of this, you have the margin trading. You have, customers borrowing from each other. Alameda is one of those. I was frankly surprised by how big Alameda's position was, which points to another failure of oversight on my part.
He was surprised by how big Alameda's position was. How can you be surprised?
And failure
when
to
it's your
appoint
company?
someone
You founded them.
to be chiefly in charge of that. But I wasn't trying to commingle funds.
Let me ask you this. The Wall Street Journal reported that Carolyn Ellison told Alameda staffers that Alameda used FTX client funds to cover loans that were being recalled because of the Luna-triggered credit crunch. Carolyn says that she, Sam, Gary were aware of this. How do you square that with what you originally said over Twitter, that this was an $8 billion accounting mistake?
So I'll point to two things. And first of all, obviously, I don't know what anyone else is thinking here. I can only talk about it from what I know, from what I knew. And a lot of this is reconstructing it over the last month. I have limited access to data. But what it seems like happened is...
He just said he has unlimited access to data. Unlimited access to data. Think about this.
In the middle of the year, a lot of, most of the borrow lending desks in the space blew out or closed down. And it seems like Alameda had, margin positions opened with them, and that it likely moved a bunch of that over to FTX this year when they shut down. And that means, I think it was over collateralized positions, but positions that involve substantial size and substantial US dollar size on the borrow side. In terms of the accounting mistake, again, looking through what happened, I think that there is a substantial discrepancy between what the financials were, what the audited financials were, the true financials, what the exchange understood. All of that was consistent, versus what the dashboards that we had displayed for Alameda's account there, which substantially under displayed the size of that position. And so that's one of the reasons that I was surprised when we dug into everything at how big that position had become.
But would you would agree that there is a much more closely connected version of FTX International and Alameda than previously understood? Fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, given the size of the position, I think it was, if not in intention, it was in effect tied together substantially more than I would have ever wanted it to be.
So,
tied in more than he would have liked for it to be. There is no accountability being shown here.
You did an interview earlier this summer with Bloomberg, and you were asked about the connection between Alameda and FTX, and you said that obviously came from the same place, because it started that way, and the same original people, but most of the remaining nexuses, you said, have dropped off.
Yep.
I know the people from Alameda decently well, almost as if you don't know what's happening there, and there isn't like a large amount, of ways remain that we are actively working together. Anything like that. Alameda is a wholly separate entity. They're different offices, like different principal offices. We don't have any shared personnel. We're also not the same company. We not all are under the same corporate umbrella or anything like that. And yet it seems like Alameda people were living in the same penthouse where you may very well be right now, all together.
Look at this smirk. Do you see this? I mean, this is a circus. People have been wiped out. Families have been wiped out. And this guy's up here smirking and lying. I mean, you can't make this up. And look at the interviewer. I mean, look at his face. Look at SBF. Look at this smirk. We're talking people's lives here. And this is what he's got to give us right here. Look at that. Look at this.
Most of Alameda was not there. I don't live there now, but not there now. I have not lived there for much of the time. But I did live with
look at him. He can't even look up
for a little while. And I'll also say that as I was earlier this summer looking at the relationship. And this is a pretty big mistaken oversight of mine. I was viewing it primarily from the trading volume perspective, because that's what drives our revenue. And so when I was looking at how intertwined are FTX and Alameda, I was looking at, well, what fraction of trading volume, what fraction of liquidity on the platform does Alameda represent? That had fallen off from something like 45% in 2019 to something like 2% this year. But in terms of positions and balances, it was a much larger fraction. I hadn't been looking at that. That's a pretty big overlap.
But Sam,
He hadn't been looking at that. I just thought you'd want to hear this. One way people can avoid what's happened with him, what he's done, is to get your own wallet. Ledger is one of the leading worldwide manufacturers of crypto cold storage wallets. Don't leave your money on FTX or Coinbase or Binance. Get it off of there and put it in your control. Put it on your own wallet. They've even got a new Ledger Stacks coming out here in a couple of months. It's touchscreen. Look at these models. Got purple here. They're out of stock of that color right now, but it'll be coming back in I'm sure. I mean, why would you let someone hold your money? 90% of you don't have a wallet. So if you're going to give your money away to companies like FTX and founders like Sam Bankman-Fried, contribute here to our channel. At least you'll know it'll go towards something useful. I mean, most of you do not own one of these. It's insane to me. Just showing you a couple of accessories they have. This is a crypto steel capsule solo. You can put your wallet in here. You can also store just your seed phrase in there. Get one. And until next time, get in there and make it happen. And contribute to the channel, either with ERC20 tokens, preferably, or Cash App.